Hello, everyone. So previously we spoke about Ben Zoma, that he gazed and lost his mind. He was one of the four sages that were attempting to rectify the sin of Adam through entering this, having this mystical meditation experience called the Pardes, orchard. And he entered through the level of the drush, of homilies. Okay. Of him, Scripture states, "You have found honey, eat no more than your fill, lest you become full and vomit it out." This is from Proverbs 25:16. So it's a very nice story about not eating more than your fill. We said that he was gazing upon the supernal union between the higher waters of the divine wisdom of the Torah and the lower waters of the natural sciences, and he was seeing how far apart they are, and he was immodest. We said his gazing was immodest because this is Hashem's creation. If it's part of his service, then maybe it's okay, but he was just gazing at it. It's not for him to look at. As we said, it's like the marital union has to be done in complete modesty, with the lights off and silence and complete proper mindset. So, and it wasn't his place to gaze to begin with. So even a great sage like Ben Zoma, we all have to be careful in our service of God. So Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai told his students, "I don't know on which path they will lead me." Meaning on the day of his passing. How is it possible that he should have such a quandary? Among the resolutions offered, Rabbi Yochanan was so preoccupied with the fulfillment of his mission that he did not have a chance to think about his own spiritual level. He was so dedicated, anxious, and preoccupied with the fulfillment of his mission every day, every hour, and every moment, that he was not aware of what was happening with his own intellectual or emotional powers. Certainly, he was not aware of the state of his hidden soul powers. And the Rebbe continues, the Lubavitcher Rebbe continues in this discourse that I'll link to. How much more so does such a concern apply with regard to an ordinary individual? He should have no feelings of self-satisfaction because he knows that he must fulfill his mission every moment. If one moment passes in which he is not carrying out his tasks, then not only has he failed to use an opportunity that has been granted him to flourish in his divine service, he has rebelled against God, King of Kings, in failing to fulfill the mission with which he has been charged. So it goes on, and I'll link to that. The idea is discussed in this discourse by the Lubavitcher Rebbe, is that in order not to miscarriage physically or with our spiritual endeavors, not to have it fall, that we have to emulate the aspect of what we said before of being selfless, being lowly in our own estimation, which again doesn't mean that we should. This is the quality of a king. So this is the ability to represent true majesty and true regality, true regalness, is through through giving all glory to God, through acknowledging God in all our actions, being transparent and transparent in our service of God, not to let our ego get in the way. And we said that this is the sign of a good guest who thanks his host for everything and in front of everyone. So it's like we said, it's this, that all of creation is wonderful creation, but not to be satisfied, not to get self-satisfaction from it. That it's all here, even thousands of light years away. Everything is in creation is for the service of God, and to spread this awareness of the service of God. So we said that last time that a quality of a king is a king on earth is that first he knows that more than anything else that God is king, and he's only transparent to that truth and realization. And ultimately, the king that we're waiting for is King Mashiach. So then we started off the series about looking towards the horizon line. So now we're saying that we want to imagine coming closer to us as we're coming closer to the horizon line. We're coming closer to the future that we want to actualize now, which is the coming of Mashiach and the redemption. And in our mind's eye, what we want to visualize is the approach of Mashiach. So this is a very good way of thinking about mirror psychology. That in a marriage, the person can know if they're doing a good job in marriage by how their wife or how their husband is reacting. Are they happy with them? So that's the mirror psychology of a marriage. So this is from Proverbs, that verse chapter 27, verse 19. This is something that the Baal Shem Tov discusses. As in water, face to face, so is the heart of a man to a man, person to a person. So panim lepanim is a healthy relationship, a face to face. Panim means inwardness, relating to someone with one's inwardness, with one's entire being. This is the relationship of a marriage on the level of a tzaddik to a tzaddikis, to a righteous marriage. That it's a complete face-to-face relationship. So, speaking about Malchus, so it's a person sees oneself in the king, in the true king, that everyone looks and actually sees a reflection of themselves. Where do we see this? There's many. We have a very good example of Queen Esther. She concealed her identity, and everyone who looked at her saw her as a member of his nation. Everyone saw himself in Esther. She was Queen Esther, is representing Malchus, kingdom. This is the property of a true king. On the one hand, he's transparent to God, and on the other hand, he's a mirror it's a mirror, and it's part of also the grace and charisma that the king has. And we said that it relates to chen, which is symmetry. So when we speak about visualizing the horizon line, it's like this quantum entanglement between two particles. That I see Mashiach, I see the tzaddik of the generation in myself, and through being drawn, being even attracted through loving the tzaddik, that the tzaddik imparts a drop of his essence within me. And this is what we spoke about, making another Jew. This is creating spiritual offspring. With the tzaddik and his following, his students, are a spiritual offspring of the tzaddik. Now there's two things in psychology. There's mirror psychology and there's projection. So projection is at the level of the emotions. And where do we see projection? We see that in the story of Joseph and his brothers. There's two Mashiachs. There's Mashiach. The Rizal says it's the same person, but there's at least two stages. Mashiach ben Yosef, Mashiach the son of Joseph, and Mashiach the son of David. So Mashiach the son of Joseph is like this psychological level of projecting. Where do we see that? Is that Joseph's brothers couldn't recognize Joseph when they came into Egypt because of the famine to buy grain. Why couldn't they recognize Joseph? Because they couldn't imagine that their brothers should remain steadfast and holy and rise in this position, but still remain holy. Amongst the immorality of Egypt, at that time Egypt was the most immoral of places, and they were projecting their own feelings, their own sentiments, their own emotions onto Joseph, so they couldn't recognize him at the time. But so how is Joseph able to recognize his brothers? Joseph's recognition of his brothers was essential self-knowledge. It's because he knew himself. It's a very important dynamic in psychological health, to know proper rectified self-knowledge, to know oneself. This is alluded to in Rashi's interpretation. When they were handed over to him, he recognized that they were his brothers and felt compassion for him. So that's also, compassion is also rectified knowledge and consciousness, to be conscious of others. Even specifically here, we see that his brothers harmed him. Still, he was able to be so self-aware and to come to them with love, but at the same time, through the series of events, he also led to their ultimate repentance, repenting for selling him into slavery, which means teshuvah is to return to God, because he wanted them to fully merit to return to God in purity and holiness. And so this is a face-to-face relationship. As we said, a proper marriage is also a face-to-face relationship at the level of tzaddik. We call Joseph HaTzaddik. Yosef HaTzaddik. So he was relating to his brothers a face-to-face, but his brothers were projecting their own, initially their own sentiments, their own emotions onto him. So to the extent that they did not recognize him at that time. So that's projecting. So what's the second level? And that's at the level of Mashiach ben Yosef. The second level is mirror psychology. So that's what we just discussed. That's relating to Malchus, Mashiach ben David. That a true king, every member of the populace sees themselves in the king. And even like a person who merited to be at a Farbrengen of a Hasidic gathering of the Lubavitcher Rebbe felt that the Rebbe was talking to them, each and every person. So this is the quality of aspect of a king. It's mirror psychology. So why do we bring all this? Is that for sure, the Holy Ruzhner's father wanted him, imparted this message of every day that there's a new horizon. And this turned in the stomach of the Ruzhner, and it turns into basically his whole life. It says it turned until that day, but he kept on thinking about that. And it enabled him to connect to his father in a face-to-face relationship, to bond with his father, to keep that connection with his father. So we said with quantum entanglement that there's this instant dynamic, this instant connection, this instant bond between the tzaddik and the follower and the student and the spiritual son or daughter, the child, spiritual child of the tzaddik. And that remains in our mindset. So, for instance, if we find ourselves now at presently temporary in a state where we're physically distant from our children, or from our father, from our parents, to remember that we all we connect on a deeper level by searching within, by self-knowledge, and by the imparting the teachings that they've left with us. So, like, to connect to the Rebbe said this many times. To connect to the Rebbe is to connect to his teachings. If you want to connect to the Rebbe, you connect to the teachings. So this is his kashrus, the connection to a Rebbe, and ultimately the connection, essentially, the connection to the Mashiach, the Redeemer that we're all waiting for. And we have this in mind, that through teaching the Torah of Mashiach, right? We said that the horizon line is like weaving more of the Atzmas or Ein Sof into creation, through revealing it, doing our part to lead so that there should be an immediate tipping point of a shifting consciousness towards the Mashiach consciousness, and the redemption will immediately come. So this is all the students, all the spiritual children of the tzaddik, all together teaching the Torah of Mashiach. And in that, but the relationship, the connection is essential in there at all times, and also to picture the countenance and the actual footsteps of Mashiach coming closer. Coming closer to us as we're looking towards the future, that Mashiach is coming closer to us, because the future state, which it means the coming of Mashiach, affects our present day. It informs on our present day actions. So as we're inspired, as we have ideas, as we are working, are doing our utmost to bring Mashiach, to teach the Torah of Mashiach, it's the ultimate outcome that's informing on the present action. And this renews itself at every moment, at every day. We're constantly seeking to renew our efforts, like to invigorate our efforts to bring Mashiach. Okay. So we should merit from here to go out and to go out and to greet Mashiach. So there's also could be from here we can appreciate that there's a change of place. And it seems at certain points that Mashiach is out there in the future, and I'm here in the present. But when I'm seeking to bring the future, like the Torah of Mashiach, which is the future, the Torah will be given in the days of Mashiach. I'm trying to impart some of that now, some of those teachings now in the present. So too Mashiach, and I think I'm standing here and Mashiach is there, but it's switching when we're devoting ourselves to the task of teaching the Torah of Mashiach. It's like I'm time traveling to the future, and Mashiach is coming back from the future to the present. Meaning what? That it should reach this quantum flux or this duality, this equilibrium, this unified state where Mashiach just comes, and the teachings come, and everything happens at once, and it's immediately the redemption is here. And this is all that we need to not get. It's all with the sense of selflessness, and proper devotion, full devotion to a face-to-face relationship with Mashiach, without ulterior motives. It says that who is a Talmid Chacham, who is a Torah sage. So on the one hand, a person might think that it's to learn book knowledge. It also means that. But the first thing that is important to remember is that a Talmid Chacham is someone who learns Torah and teaches Torah panim al panim, face to face, without any ulterior motive, and then that's enables them to see the inwardness of the Torah, to teach the inwardness of the Torah, which is the Torah of Mashiach. Right? Thank you very much.